엄청난 에너지를 춤으로 뿜어내는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니?
Coming up on Arirang News. It's Thursday, the return to work deadline set by the government for doctors on a mass walkout. The government and the trainee doctors held talks today amid a standoff, while some are resuming work at their hospitals. President Yoon says during a meeting with Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg that South Korea is a great platform where Meta's artificial intelligence can be applied. He adds South Korea is ready to fully support Meta in making what it has mapped out. Thousands of companies from around the world unveil the future of technology in communications at this year's Mobile World Congress in Barcelona, with a focus on artificial intelligence. We take a special look at what South Korean tech powers bring to MWC. Good evening. It's 9 p.m. here in Seoul. Thank you for joining us on Arirang News. As announced by the government, today was the last day for the trainee doctors who'd resigned in protest to return to their posts. Some did, but the Health Ministry today held a talk with trainees as it prepares to proceed with judicial procedures for those who aren't going back to work, possibly involving license suspensions. Our Lee Si-hoo starts us off.
Thursday was the last day for the resident doctors in the country who left their posts in hospitals in protest of the medical school enrollment quota increase to return to duty without bearing legal liabilities. Beginning in March, the government will begin administrative and judicial procedures for those who don't. Second Vice Health Minister Bang Min-soo has previously warned that the ministry would, quote, follow the laws and principles according to the current Medical Service Act to penalize medical professionals not complying with the government's order to return to work. He said measures such as medical license suspensions of at least 3 months or official indictments are inevitable. Up until Thursday, the ministry's inspection teams have been checking the statuses of doctor absences. From this point on, the ministry will notify individual doctors of their failure to follow the duties outlined by the law and the corresponding legal consequences. During the process, doctors will have a chance to defend themselves through statements of opinion. Meanwhile, the health ministry invited resident doctors for a closed-door meeting in Seoul on Thursday afternoon. The ministry has yet to announce the exact number of doctors who attended, only stating that at least one did. Following days of government return-to-work orders, some trainee doctors returned to their posts. According to the Health Ministry's announcement Thursday, as of the day before, a total of 294 doctors at 100 hospitals have returned since resigning. At one hospital, 66 doctors have gone back. As of Wednesday evening, a total of 9,997, or around 80% of resident doctors in the 100 major hospitals in the country, have submitted and maintained their will to resign. Of them, 9,076 have left their posts. Lee Si-hoo, Arirang News.
Shifting gears, President Yoon today met with Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg at his office and discussed future tech cooperation in areas including AI and semiconductors. The president says South Korea is a great platform and is ready to fully support Meta in making what it has mapped out. Our correspondent Oh Soo-young reports.
South Korea is ready to back collaborations between Samsung, Meta and other big tech firms to foster a global ecosystem of cutting-edge digital technologies. This came as President Yoon on Thursday met with Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg, who's on a 3-day trip to Seoul. Yoon's policy director Song Tae-yeon announced that the meeting took place at the presidential office for around half an hour, with the discussion centered on ways that South Korea and Meta could collaborate amid the heated global race for supremacy in artificial intelligence. With AI powering future technologies like smart devices and self-driving cars, and crucial systems and infrastructure like data centers and the Internet of Things, the president noted that IT firms are seeking high-speed AI chips for smarter and faster processing. Emphasizing that South Korea has the world's top 2 memory chip makers, Samsung and SK Hynix, Yoon encouraged Zuckerberg to cooperate closely with local companies.
As much as there's now a close-knit supply chain cooperation system between the South Korean and U.S. governments, President Yoon said he would actively support cooperation between businesses at a government level.
Tech mogul Zuckerberg reportedly noted that Samsung occupies a pivotal position in the global foundries market, a key point of consideration in cooperating with the chip firm. He alluded to the world's heavy dependence on Taiwanese firm TSMC for non-memory chips amid highly volatile circumstances surrounding the island. Prior to their meeting, Zuckerberg met with the chiefs of Samsung and LG Electronics. According to Song, President Yoon said there could be further synergy with South Korea's hardware serving as excellent platforms for Meta's AI. Given the country's diverse portfolio of smart home appliances, wearable devices and smart cars, recognized for their high technology and quality. Particularly on Zuckerberg's vision to create an open metaverse ecosystem, Yoon said South Korea continues to support such future industries and hopes to cooperate with Meta on joint research and development and fostering talent.
The president said that Korean companies can play an important role and emphasized that big tech and various governments should work together to create a digital ecosystem.
Yoon and Zuckerberg also discussed Meta's role in countering the spread of disinformation and propaganda on social media, with the South Korean leader expressing concern about the manipulation of AI and its threat to democracy, particularly ahead of the April general election. Yoon has been meeting with prominent leaders in the digital sector, including those of Apple, Tesla, Netflix and OpenAI, to seek opportunities for greater business and investment in the country. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
Over in Washington, Foreign Minister Cho Tae-yeol has met his American counterpart Antony Blinken to highlight the need to better respond to growing threats by North Korea, especially in light of the upcoming parliamentary election here and the presidential election in the U.S. Our foreign affairs correspondent Bae Eun-ji reports.
South Korea's Foreign Minister Cho Tae-yeol met with his American counterpart Antony Blinken in Washington on Wednesday local time and discussed ways to cooperate in order to better respond to evolving North Korean threats. The hour-long meeting was their first bilateral sit-down since Cho took office last month. This comes amid concerns about North Korea's military cooperation with Russia and speculations that the regime could engage in more provocations ahead of parliamentary elections in South Korea in April and the U.S. presidential election in November.
We are one in condemning North Korea's increasingly provocative rhetoric and actions that violate multiple UN Security Council resolutions, including its export of munitions and ballistic missiles to Russia.
While noting that South Korea and the U.S. have always moved in lockstep, Cho highlighted that strengthening their trilateral coordination with Japan is essential for addressing common security challenges and promoting stability in the Indo-Pacific region. On global issues, he added that South Korea continues to stand together in supporting Ukraine and that it's also united in condemning Houthi attacks. Blinken, who will be visiting Seoul next month, said he's very much looking forward to being in South Korea and said the two countries' partnership is stronger than it's ever been.
We're working together on virtually every major challenge that we have to contend with around the world, as well as working together to build even greater opportunities for our people here in the United States and in South Korea.
Seoul's foreign ministry said the two sides also agreed to strengthen diplomatic efforts to cut off the sources of North Korea's illicit funding activities and revive interest in North Korean defectors, detainees, and prisoners of war. Bae Eun-ji, Arirang News.
South Korea and the North Atlantic Treaty Organization will review further ways to address Russia and North Korea's growing military ties. That's according to Seoul's presidential office, which announced that National Security Advisor Jang Ho-jin met with Christopher Cavoli, commander of NATO's Allied Command Operations. The two officials discussed the ongoing war in Ukraine, sharing concerns that the Kremlin and Pyongyang are violating UN Security Council resolutions through their arms cooperation. They agreed to review ways to cooperate on the matter, such as through information exchanges, and also discussed possible global ramifications in the aftermath of the Ukraine crisis. Jang also highlighted President Yoon Suk-yeol's attendance at the NATO summit last year, where he strengthened Seoul's bilateral partnership with Brussels. Cavoli also lauded the partnership, calling for increased cooperation, particularly in cybersecurity and information sharing. Meanwhile, preparations are reportedly underway by a number of European countries looking to reopen their diplomatic missions in North Korea following pandemic-related closures. Lee Seung-jae has details.
In January 2020, North Korea began closing up its border in a bid to prevent the COVID-19 virus from spreading in its own country. Having one of the world's strictest border controls at the time, all European nations withdrew from their embassies in Pyongyang. However, 4 years on from their departure, a number of European embassies in the North Korean capital will reopen in the near future. According to a Reuters report on Wednesday, Britain's Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office is discussing plans with the North Korean embassy in London for a technical and diplomatic delegation to visit Pyongyang. A spokesperson from the Foreign Office said it welcomes the return of some diplomats to Pyongyang and North Korea's move to reopen its borders, adding that it asked North Korea to allow entry for the international community, including all diplomats, UN agencies, and non-governmental humanitarian organizations. Sweden's special envoy for the Korean Peninsula, Peter Samneby, said there had been some progress regarding his return to Pyongyang. The return of North Korean diplomats to their overseas posts has also been a slow and gradual process. Last August, the regime cautiously began sending their ambassadors to pro-North Korean countries such as China, Russia, Mongolia, and Cuba. Other European nations are beginning the process of returning diplomats to Pyongyang, as the German Foreign Ministry said that it will begin inspecting their embassy, which had been left vacant for years before its ambassador returns. The Swiss Foreign Ministry is also discussing a visit to North Korea to resume humanitarian projects by the Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation. Switzerland has been conducting support projects for North Korea with the Development Cooperation Office in Pyongyang since 1997, which it withdrew from in March 2020. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
In Moscow, Russian President Vladimir Putin on Thursday warned Western countries of the risk of nuclear war if they were to send troops to fight in Ukraine. Addressing the Russian parliament in Moscow, Putin added that Russia has the weapons to strike targets in the Western nations. This follows French President Emmanuel Macron's statement made earlier this week that sending in Western ground troops to Ukraine should not be ruled out in the future. This suggestion has since been rejected by the United States, Germany, as well as others. In addition, according to reports by the Associated Press, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said that there are no plans to do so. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy is traveling beyond borders to seek support for Ukraine's defense against Russian aggression. This time, he visited the Balkans for the first time since the war broke out. Our Yoon covers his latest calls for solidarity.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has been traveling around the world to drum up support for Ukraine to improve defensive capabilities against Russia at a time of faltering military support from Western allies. Zelenskyy was in Saudi Arabia on Tuesday to push for a peace plan and the return of prisoners of war from Russia, which was followed by a 2-day summit of 11 countries from southeastern Europe, along with officials from the European Union and other international organizations. Speaking at the Ukraine Southeast Europe Summit held in Albania on Wednesday, Zelenskyy said the low ammunition supply is affecting the situation on the battlefield and called on leaders of Balkan countries for help. He also proposed holding a Ukraine-Balkan Defense Forum to strengthen arms cooperation. Albania was among the first countries to offer shelter to Ukrainian refugees and continues to voice full support for Ukraine. It has provided military assistance in the form of ammunition and training for the Ukrainian military. But Ukraine did not receive full support for its war against Russia at the meeting. Kremlin ally Serbia has refused to align with EU sanctions following Russia's invasion and continues to sign cooperation agreements with Moscow. Meanwhile, at the European Parliament in Strasbourg on Wednesday, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen proposed that the European Union consider using profits from frozen Russian assets to buy military supplies for Ukraine. She urged the EU to do more on defense policy, adding that the threat of war for the EU may not be imminent, but it is not impossible.
It is time to start a conversation about using the windfall profits of frozen Russian assets to jointly purchase military equipment for Ukraine. There could be no stronger symbol and no greater use for that money than to make Ukraine and all of Europe a safer place to live.
Billions of euros worth of Russian assets are being held in Europe. Belgium has estimated the figure to be around $195 billion worth, and Prime Minister Alexander De Croo has said that he wants to use all the interest on those funds for Ukraine's reconstruction. 이은진, Arirang News.
At the National Assembly, South Korea's lawmakers today passed a proposal of electoral districts ahead of upcoming April election. This comes after a long discussion between the country's ruling and opposition parties. Our National Assembly correspondent Shin has the details.
With the general election just about 40 days away, the National Assembly on Thursday passed a proposal to finalize the electoral districts. It passed with 190 approvals, 34 oppositions, and 35 abstentions. This comes after last-minute negotiations on the electoral districts between the ruling and opposition parties. The Election Act requires the National Assembly to finalize the electoral districts a year before the election. However, this had not been done due to clashes of opinion between the parties due to concerns that seats would be lost. For instance, Jeollabuk-do province is a traditional Democratic Party stronghold. According to the bill passed on Thursday, ruling and opposition parties agreed to reduce proportional representation seats by 1 and to retain the current 10 seats for Jeollabuk-do. Originally, the plan was to take 1 seat each from Seoul and Jeollabuk-do province and add 1 seat each for Incheon and Gyeonggi-do province. However, ultimately, only Seoul, Incheon, and Gyeonggi-do province will have the changes made. As a result, the number of seats for elected lawmakers has increased to 254 from 253, as 1 seat was taken from the proportional representation bloc, which dropped to 46 from 47, keeping the total number of lawmakers at the National Assembly at 300. The preliminary agreement made by the National Assembly Special Committee on Political Reform to designate Seoul as well as Gangwon-do, Gyeonggi-do, and Jeollanam-do provinces as special zones has remained unchanged with the addition of Jeollabuk-do province. This decision allows for the partial splitting up of certain districts, cities, or counties considering their administrative boundaries and geographical conditions with the aim of reflecting the regional representation of rural areas. Shin, Arirang News.
Thousands of companies from around the world unveiled the future of technology and communications at this year's Mobile World Congress in Barcelona, with a focus on artificial intelligence. Our business correspondent Moon Hae-ryun takes a special look at what South Korean tech powers bring to MWC.
The overarching theme during the 4-day event was Future First, embodying 6 sub-themes such as 5G and AI, and extended beyond the mobile industry to digital transformation overall. This year's AI scene shaped up to be a little different from last year.
Or applications around 5G, AI, and platforms, and how these 3 things can work together to provide a service or a solution to you as a consumer or to you as a businesses that is different from what it was before.
South Korea's turnout for MWC 2024 was its largest yet, with many startups and SMEs participating. The Korea Trade Investment Promotion Agency opened a joint booth with the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy for small domestic startups, SMEs and related organizations.
8 public institutions joined forces with the government to support Korean companies as one, so 118 startups and SMEs are promoting at MWC under the same brand, Korea.
AI was a running theme for many Korean firms at the joint booth, and domestic startup Hyodol, offering AI companionship for the elderly, was awarded the 2024 Global Mobile Awards in the Best Mobile Innovation for Connected Health and Well-being category. The country's biggest tech firms also brought their A-game, with Samsung Electronics unveiling its latest line of wearable tech, the Galaxy Ring, which tracks health data in your sleep. Telecommunications companies KT and SK Telecom set up AI-related booths and demonstrated a wide range of services. KT showed its intelligent urban air mobility traffic management system that assists in the safe operation of urban air mobility vehicles. UATM digitally replicates real-world UAM operations by integrating digital twin technology and AI that enhances safety based on numerous data analyses and simulations. As for SK Telecom, it showcased its telco-specific large language model that's used in various services such as its virtual chatbot assistant. And in true MWC spirit, South Korea was also one of 10 countries, alongside the United States, Australia and Japan, that signed a joint statement outlining principles for the research and development of sixth-generation wireless communication systems. 문혜련, Arirang News.
In other news, South Korea has set its largest on-record funding for official development assistance this year. The amount tops 6.2 trillion Korean won, or about 4.7 billion US dollars. Prime Minister Han Duck-soo presided over a related committee meeting on Thursday to review and finalize this year's plan. He said the largest ODA funding set aside this year is to fulfill the role and responsibilities of a global pivotal state, a visionary concept of the countries articulated by the Yoon government. ODA targets the economic development and welfare of developing countries. On the entertainment front, Billboard has unveiled its first Billboard K-pop Artist 100 list based on their success of the main charts throughout 2023. Jungkook of BTS secured the top spot for his outstanding achievements, notably his solo debut single, 7. The list was unveiled on Tuesday local time to commemorate the upcoming launch of Billboard Korea at an event in Seoul featuring many of the listed artists in May. Billboard will select 100 K-pop solo artists or groups each year based on their placings on the Billboard 200 albums chart, Hot 100 chart, and box score data, which reflects tour records.
Even though rain and snow have persisted throughout the southern areas of the Chungcheongdo provinces, there was no major cold in Seoul today. The cold winds will get stronger overnight, and from tomorrow morning, there will be a cold snap over the whole country. Seoul is expected to drop to -6 degrees Celsius and the wind chill to -12 tomorrow. Temperatures will plummet to around -10 degrees in the mountainous areas of Gangwon-do province, where a cold wave warning has been issued. It's forecast to rain or snow on the coastal areas of the Jeollado provinces and on Jeju Island from the afternoon tomorrow. A freezing morning is expected tomorrow morning nationwide. Seoul and Chuncheon -6, Daejeon -4 degrees Celsius. It will be below 0 in the middle of the day tomorrow in center areas. Seoul at -2 degrees, Daegu and Gyeongju 4 degrees Celsius. The cold snap will gradually move away from the day after tomorrow. Stay warm in this spring frost. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
Well, that is all for this newscast. Thank you for watching. We'll be back at 10 p.m. with the AI headline news. Hope everyone has a great weekend and a good night.